knowing that our children and children that look like ours and families that look like ours are experiencing all of those things simultaneously, we're just trying to be ever vigilant to serve our communities, to create legacy projects where we are partnering with community organizations that are already doing the good work in Baltimore County and beyond, and supporting them through our fundraising and awareness building, through our finances, and through our acts of service. And so we are doing what we do well as Jack and Jill of America, looking always to partner with other organizations to have a stronger voice in this community this year.
Wonderful, thank you. Ms. Cephas?
So I too would like to thank you for having me here today with everyone else. It's nice to be surrounded by a roundtable of Black African-American women. And so the Baltimore County Alumni Chapter was chartered back in 1984, and we are committed to public service and seek to enhance and aid in the development of our communities by implementing and following our sorority's 5 programmatic thrusts. And that's economic development, educational development, international awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and political awareness and involvement. So a couple of things that we focused on this year as we pivoted into the virtual realm of serving our community was to do more for get out the vote. For example, back in the fall, we kind of assessed what was going on to see who was being voter suppressed. And from there, we decided to do a card campaign to target the areas where voter turnout was not really high. And so we serviced the 6th district by sending out postcards. And that initiative alone drummed up more voters to turn out and vote in both elections. And then something else that we're heavily doing is trying to engage more with our outreach center. We have a partnership with the Athletic League. And from that, we do various activities through the center that's with the Winfield Powell Center. And we educate our young children through things like the Black History Month. We send out books to partner with the teachers of the school system to help re-engage those young people with reading. Some other things that we continuously do is the physical and mental health. We had a couple of symposiums focused on African-American women, trying to make sure they understand that they can be their own advocates, to be their own voices, to take interest in their own health and well-being. And then also we try to educate the community as a whole. And this outreach extended beyond Baltimore County, where we did a symposium that focused on COVID-19. So we can dispute the disparities of the COVID virus, so African Americans understand what this virus is doing to us as a community as a whole, and how we can take steps to improve our health, to understand what the vaccination means, and how that can make us get back into infused of a population of the new norm. So I just wanted to bring a couple of those things to the table for right now, and I will expand on others as I'm given the opportunity to speak, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cephas. Sincerely appreciate the 3 of you answering that question. And because this is a conversation about social justice, I want a few more folks to answer that specific question. And so I will ask now Kimberly Robinson, and then I will go down to Diane Mccoy, and then we'll shift to the next question, because I have several questions I want to ask a few of our additional panelists as we engage in the conversation this evening. And so I'll yield first to Kimberly Robinson, and then Diane Mccoy. And I see Ms. I saw a hand. Okay, so we'll have those 2, and then we'll shift. All right, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Excuse me. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening on behalf of the 43 members of the Tasker Maryland chapter of the Links Incorporated. We are a Baltimore County-based chapter and have served Baltimore County officially for 31 years as of today. We're celebrating our chartering anniversary today, celebrating 31 years. And we are certainly engaged in addressing issues around social justice in Baltimore County. I think that Ms. Thornton from Greater Baltimore County, Jack and Jill, said it really succinctly when she talked about the 3 pandemics that are facing the African-American community right now, between COVID-19, racial justice, and economic justice. And so to that extent, we have been doing work throughout this year, having shifted to a virtual environment to address health disparities We've focused on COVID-19, but we also do a lot of work in partnership with the American Cancer Society as health equity ambassadors, combating health disparities in the African American community. For just about every disease you can think of, there is a disproportionate impact on African Americans. And so there is a need not only to dispel the myths and misinformation around COVID-19, the disease and the vaccine, but frankly, we already had that need around other things before we even got to the pandemic. And so that's what we've been engaged in and what we will continue to do. In terms of economic disparities, we partner with Woodmore Elementary School here in Baltimore County. And in the pandemic, those economic issues have certainly been exacerbated. The digital divide for families, well, that's an educational disparity, is really also one driven by economics, because it's economic access to broadband and to resources that are driving part of that. And we've also been combating food insecurity, just simple basic needs that are starting to become challenging for Baltimore County families. And so our chapter members have been stepping up to help close those gaps, to partner with the Maryland Food Bank along with Woodmore to provide resources to families. And then lastly, on a national level, the Links has a partnership with Noble, the National Organization of Blacks in Law Enforcement, to address issues around the social justice issues, the conflicts that occur between Black communities and law enforcement, and how we can play a part in trying to build better relationships in our local community. And I'm happy to be part of the rest of this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Robinson. So we'll go now to Ms. Mccoy.
Thank you so much, and Madam President, but thank you for all of you in terms of being here. As I said on the chat coming in, it is absolutely such a positive experience to look out and see faces full of beautiful Black women. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. My answer to that is really probably everything that everybody has already said, that for us, Associated Black Charities, what we've been clear about and talked about in the region for a number of years is that the very issues that we're all facing is really undergirded by the issue of structural racism. That really is the end all, the be all. The challenge as it relates to COVID that just kind of upended everything and allowed us to see it so much clearer. The challenge that we face in our school system, the challenge we face economically, and for us, that's where we drill down on trying to deal with that issue from a systemic level, that we've really got to change the systems if we want to change outcomes for Black people in Baltimore County in this region. And for us, that means around actually working with employers, working with systems. I've had the honor of actually being able to work with the Baltimore County Workforce Investment Board in terms of talking about what that means in terms of structural racism. They're beginning to have that conversation, as well as the city around how do you begin to look at those systems issues, not just inside of government, as you think about it, but it also is a challenge for many of you know inside of places of employment where many of you work, in terms of a challenge for Black people to raise up. If we're going to have a more robust economy, it means something very different in tackling those system issues, but also making sure the Black worker is front and center and giving them tools to move their agenda forward. And that's a part of what we do as well in terms of actually doing something called a board pipeline, where we invite people, Black and brown persons, to actually go through training to be effective, to sit on nonprofit boards in the region. Because what we know is true in Baltimore County and the region, that many of our nonprofits actually have a large percentage of white males and white females on those bodies, but they're serving a number of Black families. And we really want to infuse that with Black professionals to be there to help make that difference. That's a part of what we do in terms of continue to do that. And we call that transactional work. In our systems work, we have 10 essential questions for racial equity that we make available on our website to anyone to use them in all the different sectors to begin to address those very system issues that are keeping us where we are. And we know my ending state would be what I say all the time is, Black people are not broken. Let us be clear. We've got lots of riches and lots of assets, and actually the systems are broken. But thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bill McCoy. That was wonderful summation, and Ms. Robinson also. So there are questions that have come in that I can see, and so I'm going to ask two of those in just a second, but I do want to shift and ask a few of our additional conversationalists what should be done to ensure equity and inclusion in schools, housing, Black businesses, and our community. So how do we move forward equity and inclusion? And so I will go now to Ms. Michelle McNeil, and then I'll go to Cecilia Wright Brown, who I know is one of our businesswomen in our area, and then Celia Smith.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. It is certainly a pleasure, as everyone else has said, to be in a circle in a room full of sisters. Even though we're on Zoom, I feel like I'm very close to you all, and I'm glad to be a part of this conversation. So let me say, in terms of getting us all together and getting us in the right place, we need to do what the Biden-Harris administration has done. You need to get the right people in those offices that have our best interests at heart. So when they decided they would appoint Marsha Fudge as the person in charge of the Director of Housing and Urban Development, that was the key person to put there, because we know that she cares about us and she knows what to do to get things right. We don't have, in many cases, the right people sitting at the table. There are certainly not enough of us on boards and commissions in this state, in this city, and even represented in Baltimore County. We need to move out of our homes, out of our comfort zones, and get in the mix. Until we do and are willing to take the time to be involved, we are going to stay just where we are. So I would say, again, we need to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the right place at the right time to be counted and to be involved.
Wonderful, thank you, thank you. So now we'll go to Cecilia Wright-Brown.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about businesses and economic impact. So first, I want to start off talking about businesses are suffering. Right now, businesses are going out of business. So we need the community and we need your organizations to support Black businesses. Find us. We're out there. Networks like this are a good catalyst to reach us. So we need your Black dollars in our Black businesses. How Black businesses impact the community? So we donate. We donate monies. We donate time. We donate supplies. We donate resources. And then we hire individuals from our community. So those are immediate ways that we can impact and engage our community, that we're a part of the community, that we're vested and we're concerned about what's going on. I'd like to also talk about partnerships. So how can organizations like those established here partner with businesses, especially Black businesses in the community, so that we can leverage our resources and our base of community so that we can make more of a meaningful impact? So how can we partner? Next, I want to switch the dial a little bit and talk about economic impact. And I'm going to get real for a second and say, stop running away from individuals that want to talk to you about money. And by that, I mean, stop running away from New York Life when they call you. Stop running away from Northwestern when they call you, Edward Jones, Fidelity, Educators, TIAA, Craft. Start talking to these individuals about your money. But in particular, talk to them about insurances that have savings attached to them. Talk to these individuals. As Black people, we are taught to spend, but we're not taught how and where to save. We are the biggest consumers. We consume things that have little to no value. We need to start having conversations, reaching those that are at the lower socioeconomic levels to educate them. You don't have to have a lot of money to save money. And there's that fear that we have about money. We know that we need it. We work hard to get it, but we do little to keep it. The Black dollar does not circulate in our community at all, in my opinion. It goes from the direct deposit or check cashing center to someone else. It never floated in our community. So I feel that as organizations, as sororities, if we had fraternities on here, I would say this to them as well. We need to figure out ways to support our own, educate our own, to find ways. Why is it that we don't have more Black banks? So those are the type of things that I would like to just bring to the forefront, that we need to talk about with economic impact, Black businesses, the growth that's needed from that, looking at Stop running away from opportunities to talk about money and finance and how we can save. And those are all, everything centers around the money. Social justice is key, directly tied to economic impact. So that's what I would like to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wholeheartedly agree with you. We know that within our sorority, we have our building the economic and Black dollar, initiative, and I wholeheartedly agree that we need to ensure that we are building our businesses, building our Black businesses, and supporting our businesses also. And with that, we are going to go now to Ms. Celia Smith.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you for the opportunity. This is a spirited conversation. I want to pass the plate after Cecilia just took us to church. But I agree, actually, my sentiments were basically the same. Money and education. We as consumers have to put our money where our mouths are. We talk about buying Black and being supportive. I think it was last year, they tried to do a blackout campaign where you didn't spend any money. Everybody cried about, well, I got to buy from Target today. I got to get my hair done. So us getting serious and getting real as consumers to supporting Black businesses. And for the government and for banks, it is very hard to get a loan. If you want to start a business, you have to go to business plan. So that's where the education part comes in. Who is educating our young could-be entrepreneurs? Because it's not for a lack of drive or ambition or desire, but how do we get those people who want to be entrepreneurs on the right path? And that's where I feel education comes in, because you have to know about these opportunities in order to take advantage. I was on another Zoom not that long ago, and the speaker mentioned the fact that there was not one African-American business that applied for the Tory Burch Foundation grant. So that's free money that Tory Burch, that many of us probably purchase on a regular basis, was giving away. And she has an awesome campaign for women called Embrace Ambition. And here she is putting out money out of her funds to help other women get started in business. And not one person of color, at least African-American, applied for that money. So to me, money and education are the key to anything in life, and especially in terms of improving our communities. So that would be my answer.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we'll go to Ms. Gwendolyn, and then I will shift to a few education questions. I know that we have Ms. Scott on, but I want to hear from Ms. Gwendolyn first. I will unmute you and sure we can hear you.
Good evening, and I am so excited to be among these gracious, powerful Black African-American women during March, the last day of March History Month. I am representing my chapter president, Dr. Joanne Christopher Hicks, and we work under our 5 programmatic thrusts. And we are doing all 5: the health, education, recreation, arts, and the humanities. And we started off like everyone else. What are we going to do? So we put our heads together, and it's amazing what we can do. In September, we did a back to school, Woodlawn High School and Catonsville Middle School. We provided them with books and school supplies and masks. Even though our national organization gave us those, we're getting ready to give those out again to the various schools in Baltimore County. We did a virtual College Connect Black College Fair for Milford High School and Woodlawn High School. And we were excited about that because we did not know how that was going to go off. We are always interested in education for our children. And under our health and education in October, during Red Ribbon Week, we provided red ribbons and stickers and drug-related coloring books, age appropriate to students at our various schools, Southwest Academy and Catonsville Middle Magnet School. What we also did is we had videos that we pre-made in order for them to give them to the school so they can talk to the students about them, because as you're aware, we're not able to get into any of the school. During Black History Month, our partner schools, Subbrook Middle School and Catonsville Middle School, were able to allow us to participate virtually and to hear books that we were reading to their students for African American History Month. We also did virtually had us to go on, and each of us did a little skit in reference to our African American History Month. During Black History Month, we have a group of ladies that we focus on at Catonsville Middle School, the Ladies of Legacy. We read to them about famous Black women during Black History Month, and each of them had an opportunity to go over at their homes and talk about these ladies on video. We also provided under our Arts and Humanity a sip and paint, and that was very, very interesting. Their parents were on the video with us, and we actually had a ballet performance that was done by the Alvin Ailey dancers, because we believe that anybody in our children can do anything they want. We also zeroed in on a performance at the for HBCU. We wanted to make sure they knew about HBCUs and how to interact with sororities on HBCU campuses. And we also did a doodle at the Kennedy Center and under our music, and they doodled, and we provided them virtually all the activities, and it was amazing how it was able to be done. We also partnered with several other Head Start programs. As you're aware, some people are not aware, we have a partner with Colgate-Palmolive with the Colgate van. We did virtual visits with several of the Baltimore County Head Start programs. We are continually concerned about education. Some of our concerns are in the area of police reform, health, and business and employment. We also are really concerned about the concentrated poverty areas, especially as they make a U around the Beltway. We must do something about that, because in the educational area, our schools are not getting the type of monies that other schools in the other areas are getting. And we must make sure that since they passed all this money for us to get things for our students, we need to have things for those schools. And also, it's my pet peeve, because we volunteer with the Judy Centers. We need to make sure that we have more of them in our neighborhoods, because our children need those various types of things that they give them in order for them to succeed. It's not right for our children to not get this at an early age and make sure that they have them in order for them to be able to go and socialize, get jobs and things like that. We also have partnered with Baltimore County chapter of Jack and Jill, and we did not this year, but before the actual pandemic came, we were able to provide them with African American History Month activities too, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to do it again next year. But I really am concerned about all in the area are concerned about the education. That is an important thing that we as a body can do, and we need to have more people of color sitting, making the decisions for our children and not having them to make the decisions for them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gwendolyn. I sincerely appreciate your thorough overview. And before we go to Ms. Scott, I want to bring in Ms. Francina. Would love to hear your thoughts, and then we're going to pivot to schools and education, and do want to hear from our chair, Chair Scott. So Ms. Francina, let me make sure you are unmuted. Hold on for 1 second. Okay, it should pop up on your screen. And all right, there you go.
Yes, I just want to first say thank you for the invitation. And I'm delighted to be with such great women who are doing great things, and their organizations that are doing great things in the community. I'm associated with the Greater Baltimore section of the National Council of Negro Women. And our emphasis is upon educating women of African descent around entrepreneurship. We also are greatly focusing on health issues, especially not only physical, but mental health. We have a STEM program that we are working with young women in various schools across the country. And we also have what we call a leadership program. And we are doing monthly webinars on a national level around these issues. We especially give the webinars towards the millennial group, but everyone is invited to be a part of the webinars. NCNW is an organization of organizations, so therefore everyone who is here, they nationally, they are a part of NCNW. And so therefore you know more about what we are doing on a national level. Locally, we have adopted the Dorothy Height Elementary School, and we work with the Judy Center there. We also provide for, on an international level, we provide for a group of women entrepreneurs in Haiti, in Benin, Haiti. We are in the process right now of putting together our Spirit of a Woman conference, which is going to take place in April the 17th, as a matter of fact. I will see that you get information concerning that. And we will be focusing on the topics of mind, body, and pocketbook. We'll have people from PNC who will be coming in to do the pocketbook. We have individuals who are dealing, we have an individual out of Colorado who is going to be our main speaker, and she's going to be dealing with the spirit part of that conference.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sincerely appreciate that information, and I will ensure that the conference is a part of our follow-up information that we send to our attendees. And with that, we're going to go now to Chair Scott. Would love to hear your thoughts relative to the happenings with the school system, with our students, with our teachers, administrators, all who work within our school buildings and outside of our school buildings, and then also what it is like and the challenges that you have faced being the first Black female chair. So I'd love to hear from you now.
Thank you so much for that. I just would like to start by saying I'm very happy to be here. I feel privileged and honored, one, to be a part of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and then also to be having the opportunity to speak with all of you ladies who are just, I call them giants, who are just giants in our community and just doing so much. So you honor me by inviting me here. So thank you. Now I'll start first with the latter, challenges being the first Black female chair. I didn't go to the board intending to run as chair. However, as you all know, with our backgrounds and our commitment to community service, when I saw that there was a need for me to serve, I stepped into that role. And it has not been an easy role. I recognize that just because of who I am, how I look, and where I come from, that there were going to be people who just were not comfortable with that. But as I tell other young ladies who I speak to and who've asked me questions, that doesn't stop me. I'm here to serve the children. I'm here to serve the community. And if someone else perhaps has a different view, we can examine that. But I feel that collectively we can all work together to move forward our system, do what's best for our students, our families, our parents, and make sure that our children have the best education that we can give them. So that is why I'm here, and that is what I do. I'm busy focusing on the work. I don't focus so much on the title, but I do recognize that a lot of people do have a lot of questions. They would like to know more, like how did you get there and things like that. But I'm mostly focused with the work. So with that, I would just like to share with everyone, one of the first things that I did when I came was I wanted to start an equity committee, and a committee was started about 12 months later. And one of the first things that we did was we did an equity audit. And the equity audit evaluated what some of you all have spoken about, where the children are, how they're performing, and that is also on our website. And I can just share with you a few things because I recognize that we are short on time, but we looked at academic achievement, particularly benchmarks at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. The rates of students meeting benchmarks on academic achievement measures are notably lower for African American and Black students, Hispanic Latino students, and students for free and reduced meals. We also looked at Black and African American middle school students' rates of meeting the MAP reading and math benchmarks are more than 20 to 25% points lower than their non-Black peers. Students identified as Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, and eligible for free or reduced price meals, English learner, and special education services are significantly less likely to be enrolled in advanced placement courses than other students. Another statistic that, and I'm just pulling out certain ones, 90% of elementary school teachers are female, 90% of them are white, while 37.6% of elementary students are Black or African American. Fewer than 20% of elementary administrators are African American. At the middle school level, nearly 75% of teachers are female and then 80% are white. Approximately a third of middle school principals and nearly 40% of assistant principals are Black or African Americans. And those are just some of the few statistics that I pulled out from this equity audit. The full audit is on our website because I felt there are things that we think may be going on, but I needed actual data, numbers, and statistics. And I use that as my guiding compass with which I use to apply to policy, to our schools, to outreach, and everything else that we do. Another thing I would just like to share with everyone is we did recently have a presentation from Dr. Williams about our reentry program, because we would like our kids to go back to school ultimately. About 47% during phase 1 and 2 of our students want to remain hybrid. 47% want to remain virtual, 53% want to remain hybrid. That was broken down and it was presented at our equity committee. In the West Zone, 57% of our students want to remain hybrid. That was even broken down in particular by race. Black students, about 47% of our African American students want to remain hybrid, whereas 43% of white students would like to return to, 47% of our African American students would want to remain virtual, was 43% want to go back to a hybrid in-person learning style. So that is what we use to guide and to understand what is going on, why is that happening, and the differences based on county, the differences based on race. And those kind of numbers are specific and very important to us. And these are also all on our BCPS website, which I'll put the link in there to share. But I wanted to make sure that's the kind of chairwoman I am. And that's what I use to guide going forward: data, information. And then also another thing I would just like to say is all of you all are very educated. You understand what's going on. And I think that as the board chair and as the board, we need to hear from you all. We need to know what kinds of things are going on in the community. What types of information should we be focusing on? Because when we don't hear from people such as yourselves and educators and others who are very knowledgeable, then we allow others to frame the conversation around us and for us. And the way that you do that is you email people such as myself. You can email the board. We have public comment, BOE at, and actually I will actually put that in the chat, but sending us emails, letting us know, showing up at board meetings and speaking about, as I've heard some of you all saying, this is working, this is not working. Because when they don't hear our voices, or when I don't hear our voices and others don't hear our voices, then it seems as if it's just the chair, Makita Scott, speaking, but not actually that I'm reflective of a larger community, which I am. I'm reflective of you all from this community. I've got children who've graduated from these schools. I have children currently in these schools, and my viewpoints are reflective of us all. It's not in isolation. So I know that was quite a bit. I apologize, but I'm very passionate about everything going on. So thank you. And any questions, please let me know.
Absolutely. And that was wonderful information. And I love how you wove in how people get involved and how they can ensure that their voices are heard through public comment, through attending the meetings, et cetera. So thank you so much, Chair Scott. And I'm going to go now to Ms. Cephas, and then I'm going to start to weave in questions that are in the Q&A feature, questions that are in the chat. And so I'm going to direct those to various roundtable participants so that we can get through those, because there are some substantive questions there. So we'll start now with Ms. Cephas.
Thank you. So when it comes to educational development, there's a couple of things that we're doing to kind of make sure we're targeting different group ages for these young ladies and also for the young men. So we have the Delta Gyms, Delta Academy, and the Body programs. And what we're trying to do is make sure that for each of these different programs, we're kind of helping these young people, since they're in this virtual realm, of understanding that they're not in it alone, because we know that the suicide rate is going up for teenagers. So we're trying to make sure that they know that they have a support system outside of their family to be there for them, but also through the outreach center, when we assess what needs to be done to provide education for these young children, we went and made sure we got tablets for them. We did a book supply drive, which also included some nutritional values for them, because, you know, nourishment is very critical to make sure they're learning correctly during the school system in this virtual realm, but also just making sure we're doing things like spa days, civic engagement. And we talked about this the other day. Civic engagement seems to be one thing that's really lacking in the school system these days. And so what we're trying to do is make sure we're infusing civic engagement in all these different programs we're doing with the young people to make sure that they understand the importance of voting, so that when they reach the age to be able to vote, they know that they too have a civic responsibility and duty to get out and vote and to make a difference in the world. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront of some things that we're doing when it comes to educational development. And we're also reassessing so that next year we're targeting the younger ages, elementary school, with regards to some programs that we can do to help enrich the education that's being brought to these young people, because we all have seen the school system, what's being taught in certain areas just isn't equitable across the playing field. And whatever we can do, whether we collaborate. And so again, President Brown, I commend you for bringing us together, because we can't do it alone. Each organization, collaboratively, we can figure out what we can do. And we're going to discuss that later. But, you know, whatever we can do, because I heard so many different schools that are being taught, touched upon, we can bring each other together to see how we can make a very impactful way of touching these young people, so that they too know that they can be the minds and beings of the politicians, the business owners, whatever it is they have set in their minds, that they too can do this themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Cephas. And we do look forward to some of the strategies that we're going to discuss at the end of the conversation. So some of the questions that are in the Q&A feature, so I'm going to direct one to Ms. Michelle Emery. And then I will direct the next one, which kind of piggybacks on the first one too, Ms. Diane Mccoy. So the first question is for Ms. Emery. What would you recommend for citizens to do to get involved? You mentioned getting on a variety of boards, but where should we start? And then I will piggyback that with the second question from Ms. Mccoy. You mentioned the lack of diversity in the nonprofit sector. Could you speak more about the importance of serving on nonprofit boards and the changes that need to happen in the nonprofit sector to better support Black and Brown communities? So we'll start with Ms. Emery.
Thank you. As an organization who advocates primarily on behalf of African-American women and girls, specifically in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment, I would say we've heard tonight from all of the ladies on the panel the various things that their organizations are involved in. And so one great way to link into things that are happening, particularly for our young people, is to get involved in these many organizations that are offering opportunities for all kinds of education. The coalition also has a very strong STEM program. We work with schools, particularly with middle and senior high schools. We work with women that are interested in starting their own businesses. I mean, ever since the pandemic has started, we've had multiple webinars on financing and how to get money and how to use your money, and just actually how to work through all of the barriers that you may have in starting a business and how to maintain during the pandemic. We featured women on our webinars that have actually survived this pandemic. So it's been very good to hear from others what we need to be doing. There is a lot of help, and I would suggest that they reach out to us to start with. The other thing is we always have to, do our research. the library or any one of our organizations can guide you to the research that you may need to do in order to get connected. I'd like to share with you at this time, as an organization also that actually advocates on behalf of health, we have just signed a national partnership with Walgreens. And so we will be pushing out education around COVID vaccine, which we've been doing a lot of webinars on, but we will also be working with Walgreens in our communities across the city and county of Baltimore to make sure that our people are getting the vaccine, that their questions are being answered, that they aren't afraid to get it, that they don't have problems with access to getting it, whether it's transportation or other ways. We want to be able to help. And so we'll be rolling out that information publicly within the next week or so. But we're very proud of the fact that we've been able to connect with a partner such as Walgreens to do this for our communities.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mccoy?
So I want to answer the nonprofit question, but I'm also going to add to Michelle's in terms of the question for her, and just so that the audience knows that there's a law in the books in the state of Maryland about increasing the number of women on boards and commissions in the state. It's a targeted law that says it has to happen in terms of that. So know that that is there and that is your tool. And so getting to your legislators should be imperative, to Michelle's point about making sure that you have an opportunity, and your organization should approach your delegates and about getting on that, because there's a law on the books. This year, they actually introduced a law to change it to make sure there were more Black persons in terms of on boards and that for-profit in the state that were doing business with the state. I don't know where that is in being passed, but this law got passed last year before last, by the Economic Alliance in terms of a group of largely white women, but be clear, they have a direct access to the appointment secretary. You can have the same direct access in the state of Maryland. So I want to just share that information in terms to Michelle's very valid point. As it relates to the nonprofit, in terms of getting that change, we also pivoted, like everyone here, and did a number of webinars and still doing them around how do you access resources for nonprofits. We knew that Black and brown nonprofits led by Black and brown people weren't getting the same information in terms of the resources that were available. So we did that webinar. We'll do that again this year. I talked about our board pipeline, where we actually train, and thank you for those that have participated in the board pipeline in terms of some of the panelists here, that we actually train Black and brown persons to actually sit on nonprofit boards. I will tell you, for those that are interested, that the nonprofits in Baltimore County, in the region totally, are very, very excited that a white lad, they want you on their board. Be clear, we get an overabundance of those organizations coming to the match reception because they're very clear. They were clear before the death of Mr. Floyd. They are super clear now in terms of that. So this is really the opportunity to make a bold difference. I want to commend the chair of the school board in terms of what you're doing, in terms of pushing that. And that's the very reason why we have this. So that very point that Michelle made as well, get on those boards. Your voice matters. You can make the difference for those Black boys and girls and men and women they're serving. Your voice matters. And we want to make sure you have the tools to matter in terms of the training we take you through. It's doesn't cost, and I think it's an hour and a half over 5 weeks. But again, there are lots of other tools that are available if you are an existing nonprofit, and you can reach out to me. I can share some of the other tools in the webinars that we continue to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback, Ms. Bell McCoy. So there are a few questions that came forward through the chat before I go back to the Q&A feature. So one is, how can we leverage our power to make our council members and legislative representatives more accountable to our needs? And before or while someone is raising their hand, I want to share. So I see Kimberly's hand. I want to share and give a shout out. I cannot not be in this conversation and give a shout out to Ms. Janice Washington, who is the Maryland State AKA Connection Committee lead, and she is the chairman. She's absolutely wonderful and recently led the 900 member virtually attended AKA Day at the Capitol, and she is a member of Upsilon Epsilon Omega, and we're just so proud of the work that she's doing within the state of Maryland. Our committee chairman within our chapter is Janelle Griffith-Herring, co-chairman is Robin Lyles, but I want to thank all of them for the work that they are doing to further legislative efforts. We know about the settlement that just happened relative to HBCUs that was signed into law. And so that is not only state news, but it's national news. And so just want to commend all who have been a part of that effort and all who are a part of moving these priorities forward. And so with that, I yield now to Kimberly Robinson.
Thank you so much, Madam President Brown. So when it comes to engaging with legislators, that's not only something that's important to Links Incorporated, it's also part of what I do professionally. So I always have strong opinions about what people ought to be doing when it comes to engaging with legislators. My chapter members know this. What I would say when people ask the question about how do we hold our legislators accountable, the first step, frankly, is getting to know your legislator. So often when you talk to the community, when you talk to people and people say, you know, they're not doing this and they're not doing that, and you know, they don't share the things that I think ought to be priorities, what I will often ask is, well, did you tell them what your priorities are? And people look at me like, well, what do you mean? I mean, did you call? Did you write? Did you send an email? Did you go to the meeting? Did you actually speak to the county executive, to your county council member, to your delegate, or to your state senator, even to your congressperson when the opportunity arose? Did you let them know what matters to you? Because I think what we sometimes underestimate is that somehow our legislators know what we care about, and they don't. They know what the people who tell them what they care about. And if we aren't, as a community, raising our voices and making sure first that they know what we care about, it doesn't make their list of priorities. So we don't want them to guess what we care about. We don't want them to make their best, effort to figure it out, in the same way that Ms. Mccoy talked about the need to have Black faces on nonprofit boards so that boards serving Black communities are doing things that mean something to Black people. We also need to make sure that they know what Black communities want. So the first step is to get to know your legislator, raise your voice with your legislator, and tell them frequently, frankly, what they're doing that you like and what you dislike, and let them know. And you'll be surprised how easy it really can be to engage with them, to build that relationship. They're looking for community feedback, and they're looking for trusted community partners who are going to help guide their legislative agenda. And then when it comes to holding them accountable, it's letting them know when you're displeased with what they're doing. It's letting them know in the same way you need to proactively say, here's what I want you to do, and here's what I'm happy you've done. Here's also what I'm disappointed that you've done, or that you didn't engage in, and you didn't speak up about. And letting them know that it's important to you that they take those positions, that they change those behaviors, and that if not, we as a community need to then step up and cultivate candidates who are going to represent those things that we need. I think another one of the previous panelists talked about that need to make sure that we are creating the opportunity for people who think like we do to run for office. And so as organizations, as a community, we certainly can be part of identifying people who share our values and making sure that those are the people who are looking to represent us, so that we know that people who are going to be responsive are doing that. But being accountable means we have to also be engaging with them. That's how we hold them accountable. We've got to let them know what we want, and we've got to call them out when they don't do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Robinson. We'll go now to Ms. Celia Smith.
Thank you so much. I do want to piggyback off of my Madam President, Kimberly Robinson, for our Links chapter, said, and give a great, I really want to give a shout out to Chrissy Thornton, my sister president. I reached out to her and another president to do a forum on elections have consequences. And we came together very quickly and put together a forum, and our local politicians like Julian Jones answered the call right away. Stephanie Smith, although she's in the city, she's been very influential, and they answered the call right away to have this very important conversation about, right before the election, about why elections have consequences and how important it is that really all politics is local, and making sure that people are engaged. And I give the story, I was going to the Red Run Park during the pandemic to do my exercise, and it started to get really like messy, people just throwing away food and all kinds of things. I was like, why would they come to this beautiful park and do this? I sent one quick email to the politicians over that area. The next day, thank you, Ms. Lowe, for bringing that to our attention. The aide, not the garbage man or whoever, the sanitation workers, the aide went and picked up everything in that area. It is now clean. Please let us know if there are any other problems. And it was just so important to say, if I hadn't said anything and just been upset about the park being dirtied, it wouldn't have been answered. But I do want to just say that it is so important to engage. And I give the story, we contacted our interest group Just for reference, we're not an actual chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha, but we're a group of members who want to establish a chapter. And so you have to do work in the area. And the first thing that we did was reach out to the politicians on that side, which is on the east side, the ones that represent Dundalk, Turner Station, Essex, Rosedale, Overlay. And they were very responsive. Kathy Bibbins was the first one to write back and give us a letter of support. I always tell the story that our county executive, Johnny O, he sent me a wonderful letter of support and said, dear Sora Celia. So the Sora thought that was so cute. But from engaging with him at events, he was familiar with who I was. And he was so familiar because of UEO's tremendous job in the county. When they saw Alpha Kappa Alpha, they knew. When we went to Turner Station, the community center at Solis Point said, oh yeah, AKA Pink and Green, right? Because they had done so much work in Catonsville with the Soras there. So it is so important to be in the community, to pick up the phone, send the email, because I was actually surprised as to how responsive the politicians can be. So thank you again for saying that. I just wanted to echo that it does work and they do respond.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to go to a question that is in the Q&A feature. It says, during the pandemic, we have seen a rise in the local church serving in the community. I would like to see this momentum continue post-pandemic. As a leader in the faith-based community, I'm interested in your suggestions on how the local church can support your organization. So is there someone on our roundtable who would like to answer this question? I know that the churches have been extremely supportive. They've served as vaccination centers and hubs. They have helped to serve food in the community. They have been hubs for food, not only drop-offs, but they have delivered food to homes, right? They have driven seniors to their vaccine appointments. I am a member of the Carter Memorial Church of God in Christ, and I know that my church has been very active in this effort as well. And so would love to hear if there are ways that any of you have either partnered with churches or see this as an opportunity to continue the momentum of that partnership type opportunity. Michelle, yes.
I can comment on that. I certainly can. And it's all in the asking. I've never asked and been told no. We've done food drives, we've done food drop-offs, we've done COVID vaccine centers. Sometimes we don't get because we don't ask. And so I would just encourage everybody to ask. There is in Baltimore metropolitan area, there's almost a church on every corner. And believe you me, they are looking for opportunities to connect with us because they recognize, for one, many of us belong to their churches, okay? Second of all, they realize their strength in numbers. And sometimes they have opportunities that we don't have and vice versa. And if we can come together, just as we're coming together, convening tonight to talk about how we can work together, it just strengthens and broadens our impact. And so I would say we just need to ask. If I can reel back just one moment when we were talking about our legislators, if I might, one of the things that I think we need to remember, and I think Sister Kim spoke about it when she said that we write letters to them and they respond, and Sister Sylvie Lowe also spoke about it. You are absolutely right. What we need to do too, though, is we need to show up. We need to show up at their town hall meetings, whether they're in person or virtual. And in our Black community, we need to learn to give. You may not have a lot. You don't have to give $1,000, but we need to give and support our legislators when they are campaigning. They need the money. It is very expensive to do commercials, TV commercials, and all those sorts of things, to do billboards. We need to give them some of our money. When you think about some of the things that we spend our money on every week, if we take our money and channel it behind the people that we know have our interests at heart, we would get it back. So we need to think about that when the next campaign comes along, and it's coming, so beware.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So Ms. Lawings, and then I'm going to pose a few of the questions that I've seen to Chair Scott, and then we have to get to what is next as we wrap up the conversation. I know it's been a substantive conversation, but want to get to the next, right? And what we strategize to do moving forward. So Ms. Lawing.
As the president of the Baltimore County chapter, newly chapter chartered members of 23 ladies, we charted in May, and we started off in June, and we were able to support Morning Star Baptist Church's food pantry. As Michelle said, you ask, you get, you don't get. We were able to, just the 23 of us, we donated over $500 worth of food to the pantry. We also gave a donation to the Children's Church of about $250. Now, we started off with little seeds, so this is money that's coming from the 23 members. We also did a donation to, in Catonsville, Children's Home. We were able to supply them with a total of $800 worth of Amazon products and soaps and towels and washcloths. We also did a donation to Hannah Moore's house, which is in Catonsville. We our employment, her employment, we were able to give over 100 worth of grooming kits. And in those kits, you had towels, washcloths, lip balms, combs, several other things to support those teenagers that are in the homeless shelter, as well as a grooming guide on virtual interviewing. We created a virtual interviewing questions because of the pandemic. A lot of us, all of us are on Zoom, and we also have to figure out how to interview. We also donated masks. So we're trying to do our part in, donating to the shelters and the churches and, other areas that people are asking for our support. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to go now to Chair Scott. Just a few questions for you relative to schools. So the first is, what is or if you know the date of the next board meeting, and is that virtual? Is it open to the public? So we'll start there, and then I have a few additional questions for you.
Sure, certainly, absolutely. The next date of the board meeting, actually, our schedule and everything is on bcps.org. And the next date is April 6th, and our board meetings are at 6:30 p.m. Now, our board meetings are virtual. So going to bcps.org, you will be able to see the link to join our board meetings so that everyone can watch them virtually. Once everything gets back to normal, our actual board meetings will be in person at in Building E in Greenwood, on the Greenwood campus.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next question is, what will your administration do to increase the number of African-American administrators and teachers in Baltimore County schools? So
first thing was to do the equity audit so we could get a handle, an idea of where we are. So now that I have my compass, basically working with our superintendent, Dr. Williams, to identify areas where we can recruit African-American and actually a more diverse workforce. So going to HBCUs and additional places like that to make sure that we are recruiting and actively recruiting more African-American teachers to make sure that our workforce or teaching is diverse, but also supporting those that are currently in the school system so that they can, perhaps if someone is in a role and they want to move up to an administrator, want to move up to a principal, making sure that they have the appropriate supports and mentoring, but also identifying anything that may be in the way or any concern or any issues that there may be. And that this again is operations, but working with the leadership, Dr. Williams and his staff, to identify any of those issues that may be in the way of those who are there moving up in those positions. So it's a holistic approach.
Thank you so much. The last question I have for you directly is, I appreciate you sharing this data from the equity audit. This is a huge step in dismantling very oppressive systems, and your passion speaks volumes. I'm a school leader, and what would you suggest that I can do from my seat to lead in this area?
Oh, well, thank you so much, whoever said that. I greatly appreciate that. It was a tall order, but I feel that's fine there. I think being a school leader and leading, basically being involved with, the school, being involved with the administration, attending and watching board meetings, and looking at actually feedback. I would actually say giving feedback to people such as myself as the board chair and others, letting us know how we can support you to help you to lead. Because I don't feel that leadership is in isolation. I certainly don't feel that way. I want support. I want input from the community. As someone said, holding elected officials accountable. We are an elected board. I don't know if I mentioned that I'm an elected board member. So I also need to be held accountable, as does the full board. But yes, also hearing from that school leader on ways that we can help support that school leader so that they can have the supports that they need to really lead and shine at their school. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's one additional question that I think this will be the final question that we have from the Q&A, and then we're going to pivot. So the question here is, are there any initiatives that focus on partnering with civic engagement offices and leadership on development and or Black student groups on college campuses to further propel the development and community bridging of scholars throughout K through 16? So after they graduate from high school, right? And I know that within Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, even in our chapter, we have a partnership with the YWCA. We have our #CAP initiative that is, success in the college admissions process, right? And then helping them to bridge that transition. And so would love to hear maybe one individual who would like to answer this question as well before we pivot.
Is this a question for me or for?
Sure,
Sorry.
It can be.
Okay. I was going to say I wasn't aware right now of something like that currently at BCPS, but that does look like something that my equity committee could actually look into. And that sounds very intriguing.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much, Chair Scott. And so the question now for the entire roundtable, I know it's 7:15, but we can do this because we're going to talk about what is next, right? And there are some key takeaways that I have heard. And if you would like to speak to what is next, if you could raise your hand as I share some of the key takeaways. One that I heard was that we have to move out of our comfort zones, right? We have to get involved. We have to serve on boards. We have to support our Black businesses. We have to ensure that we are clear that there is a law on the books in Maryland about diversity, right? That we have to utilize that as a lever, right? And follow up with our local elected officials. And also, and I heard this from Diane Mccoy, and I am going to need you to patent this quote, Ms. Diane, because you said we must change the system in order to change the outcomes. And I think that that is so, so critical to what we are doing and how we are collaborating. And so I would love to hear folks' thoughts on what we do collectively, right, in partnership, right, and how we further the impact of all of our organizations in a collective way so that we can be of greater service to those whom we serve in our communities. Chrissy. All right.
Yes, I'd like to contribute to that. We always think about, and I shared this earlier, we think in our chapter of Jack and Jill of America, how we can have the most impact and how we can create a legacy of our service. And I think even previously in our chapter, we recognized that we weren't doing all we could year over year to have that large impact. Ultimately, I think what we need to do to help our community be a little bit more stable for people who look like us is to help organizations who are doing the ground level work become sustainable. Right? I think in organizations like ours, it's easy to identify a need and then suddenly want to solve it by popping up with new programs and popping up with new initiatives, when there are organizations who are grassroots, who are already, effective in the community doing this work. And it would be so much more effective for us to support them by leveraging our numbers and our expertise, support them by leveraging our finances. And so most of these organizations like ours here fundraise, we are committed to community service, we are committed to civic education and community building. And if we were to unite and to decide on common initiatives and to do that together, we would create so much sustainability in Baltimore County and beyond. It goes from an organization like mine being able to donate thousands of dollars a year to support community initiatives, to collaboratively us being able to donate tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars together to identify organizations who are doing that good work and to gird them up and support them, instead of us saying, you know what, there's no equity in vaccine delivery, so let's start a program, or there's no equity in school, so let's start an initiative. There are really prepared organizations, and I'm a nonprofit professional that do this work and do it well, and they need our support. And I think when we stop doing kind of like the one-off initiatives and combine our networks and our access and what we all bring to the table, we'll be able to have an unstoppable impact on the community. And so my suggestion for this conversation is for it to continue and for us to really figure out where our commonalities are and to rally around where we can have the biggest impact and have the largest voice together. And since I probably won't speak again, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to contribute and to collaborate with you this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thornton. So Ms. Cephas, Ms. Lindsay, Ms. Robinson, and then Ms. Bell McCoy. Yes.
So just to extend upon what Ms. Thornton just spoke about, it's important for us to self-assess and to kind of see what kind of ways can we partner with each other, not only with this group of beautiful young African-American women in this roundtable discussion, but Baltimore County is huge. And one organization cannot do it alone. And what a difference it can make if we just put our collective heads together to strategize not only what we can do for now, but for out years, and to see what is necessary for us to make a difference. And I talked about it before, civic engagement, teaching our young people now, and not just our young people, teaching our young adults what it means to have that civic duty, what it means to be involved, and what it means to support each other. Because I think Ms. Brown talked about before, supporting our own is critical. And it's not happening all the time, so we've been trying to find ways of supporting Black businesses with different things we've been doing in our sorority within Baltimore County itself. And we've been trying to encourage sorors to, even when you go out, eat and dine, make sure you select the Black businesses. When it comes time for us to do different programs, like we said, it's out there. You just got to ask. And that's what we've been doing, is like asking the different churches, asking the different organizations, what is it that you need from us? We're here for you. We're here to support you. We're here to be there for you. So continue down those paths of not working in silos, but working in a collective effort to do what's best to grow Baltimore County. Because I don't know about anyone else, but it breaks my heart when I walk out the doors to see trash in the streets and not to see Baltimore County thriving the way it was when I was growing up. And however we can do to put pride back into Baltimore County and put pride back into our citizenship, what a difference Baltimore County would make. Because I'm tired of taking my money out to Columbia. I'm tired of taking my money out to other areas, but not in my own town. I want to be able to eat, play, work, and thrive in the Woodlawn area, in Randallstown area, so that we are not treated like the handicapped children. We should be treated equally across Baltimore County so that we're all thriving.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cephas. All right, we'll go now to Ms. Lindsay. I'm going to unmute you and we will ask, all right, let's see, can you hear me? All right, we're going to come, yes. Okay, there you are,
I just wanted to add on to the civic engagement. It's very important that we to come together collectively to let our voices be heard, to let them know that we are a combined group of organizations in Baltimore County, in the horseshoe, around the others. And if we don't come together, no one else is going to do it for us. And I'm sick and tired of being on the Liberty Road corridor and not getting the same type of service that those people that live up there in the Hereford zone are getting. And we must start today as a group to decide that we are going to be heard and something's going to be done in our community in the areas of education, police reform, health, business, and civic engagement. And businesses are important for the African American because all along the Liberty Road corridor, all the businesses that were owned by African Americans are closed. We have to make sure that we support those businesses, and we need to identify those businesses that are owned by African Americans and get the word out for us as a group to make sure that we spend our money with them, because I'm sick and tired of going to Columbia and our other places to spend my money because our stores are closed.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lindsay. And we will hear now, so we have, I see 3 hands, so if we could take 1 minute apiece to share our closing thoughts on what is next. So starting with Ms. Francina, then we'll go to Ms. Robinson, and then Ms. Cecilia Wright-Brown, and then we'll close out. Thank you.
Yes, as I was saying, the NCNW is an organization of organizations. And so I would like to see us come together and put together some type of webinar around women in business, African American women in business, because that is one of the issues that we are trying to get more African American women involved. We have partnered with the Goldman Sachs initiative, and that's a lot of money out there. And so we need to get those individuals who are interested in going into business to help them to do so, and those who are already in business, help them to expand. And the other thing is women in leadership. All of you are involved individually in leadership, and we need to help those millennials who are interested in leadership, give them some training so that they can come in. I want to also at this time thank Diane Mccoy, because I'm on a board now as the only African American among that group of board members. And I also want to say that when someone mentioned about bringing in money from other organizations, I was able to reach out to another person at another organization and bring in $5,000 just by writing a letter to them. So yes, leadership and entrepreneurship, I think that's something we can come together and do as one group. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you this evening.
Thank you so much for being a part. Thank you. All right, let's go to Ms. Cecilia Wright-Brown, Kimberly Robinson, and then we'll close with Diane Bell McCoy. Thank you.
So I have a couple low-hanging fruit suggestions from a business and economic stance. So one low-hanging fruit is I heard that most of your organizations have STEM programs. Maybe we could look at integrating an economic or business plan or something into your STEM programs, even though economics is traditionally thought as business, but it involves money, which is STEM. So perhaps looking at bringing in some of our local bank experts via Zoom, since we're virtual, and have them do a module on how to set up a bank account, how to save money, how to open a savings account. Maybe we could galvanize and work together to do something like that so that we can, start there with our young people. The second thing is it's something just as simple as we can all select maybe 2 businesses a week or every 2 weeks, and we could just focus on those businesses. The radio station, Magic is doing it. Most of the radio stations are doing it. They have a business that they feature every week. We can start by promoting, businesses in Baltimore County, and then looking to see how we can support them. If we can't support them that designated week that they were featured, we still have them as an option to support them. Say that, wait, maybe we need their services. I'm just saying, say maybe we need printing. There are Black businesses in Baltimore County that do printing. You may not have printing needs during the week that they're featured, but now you have a resource to go to in your community. We can start with Baltimore County And after we go through, say, the rotation of businesses in Baltimore County, then we can look at the state of Maryland. There are other Black businesses in the state of Maryland. Those are just two low-hanging fruit, immediate action items that we could actually start to integrate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll go now to Ms. Kimberly Robinson.
Thank you, Madam President. So, you know, I've heard a lot of the sister organizations on the Zoom talking about, you know, how we can coordinate and how we can collaborate. So I'm going to go ahead and share that, interestingly enough, prior to receiving the invitation for this conversation, my executive board had a conversation about the need to do exactly that. And it was our intent to reach out to the other organizations in Baltimore County to see if there would be interest in creating an informal coalition of the Black women's organizations in Baltimore County to take exactly what you've begun with this conversation and make it a formal thing going forward. We were going to start with the agreement and then do the conversation. You started with the conversation, but I would really like to throw out there the opportunity, I'm making a bold move right here in the middle of your conversation, to extend the invitation to you, Kendra Brown, as president of UEO, to have a conversation specifically about how we make this a little bit more formal. Not formal is in terms of an organization, but formal in terms of an informal collaboration amongst the organizations that has structure, so that we can take what you've begun here in this conversation and give it the structure we need so that we can do the things that have been suggested, right? Find those points that we have in common, figure out what all of our respective organizations would like to partner on, and then give that the fullness that it needs so that we can be as strategic as we would like to be, as we are with our own programs, in a collaborative way. So I'm volunteering today to reach out to you after the call, and then to work with the sister presidents on the call so that we can really move that forward, so we can take these next steps and make them more set, so that we can go ahead and do all the things that we're so committed to do. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think that's really the way we take what we've started in this conversation and move it forward. And thank you for getting the conversation started.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to collaborating with you. Absolutely. All right, we're going to go now to Ms. Diane Mccoy.
Thank you again, Madam President. Thank you all. And Ms. Robinson, I absolutely agree with that idea. And I would say it makes perfect sense given all the different ideas that have been put forward, because you really do have to have a strategy in terms of how can you strategically move this kind of agenda forward. I would only say in answer to Kendra's question, though, that I want to make sure that as we all think about that, to think about it in two different ways, to think about it, what we can do that's transactional, which is the number of things you talked about, investing in Black businesses. That while I talk about systems in terms of Madam School Board Chair, because she really, the things we want for our kids, she's really beginning to tackle it through a system. You can't just do it by the investment unless you also looking at system change. You look at the policies, you look at the practice, you look at the culture. That's where we're held down. If we don't change those three elements in an organization, you don't change the long-term outcomes. All we'll get is we'll help people right in front of us, but you won't help behind until you change the culture, the practices, and the policies. And that's the system change. So we have to do both, and all at both times. So I figure out in that strategy, who's going to do what and moving it forward. My example of that I'll close with is to our Madam Business Person, it will be the PPP loans in terms of that in fact, if they looked at the reality of systems and asked themselves some racial equity questions, then that bill would not have been passed by Congress, because clearly African Americans nationally do not have relationships inside of bites to access those loans. And that was proven. All you had to do is ask yourself that equity question at that point, and we wouldn't have the catastrophe we have for Black businesses. That's why you want a systems change. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much for your resounding closing remarks, and everyone for participating and speaking to what is next, from conversation to action. We are so delighted that we could convene this conversation and look forward to all that is happening, so that we can not only impact what is right before us, right, but those who are coming after us as well. So again, thank you so much to our Roundtable participants, to our attendees, all who are a part via Facebook and all of our social media platforms. There is a lot that we are going to continue to do, and we look forward to all of you being a part. And with that, we are going to have our closing word, as we say, closing remarks, right, in church, but just a closing word. I know we have a survey, and right on cue, Crystal Staples dropped that into the chat. So please do complete our survey. And again, we appreciate you being a part of our roundtable discussion. Crystal, are there closing thoughts that you want to have?
I just want to thank everyone that was able to take some time out of your busy schedules to join us in this important conversation. And as already been talked about, we need to come together, this being a movement forward for all of us. And so I look forward to working with each and every one of you and collectively so that we can do the next step, okay? And the survey is in our chat. We ask that all of our participants and our audience to please utilize the survey. Back over to you.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we are concluded on this evening. And again, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation. Have a wonderful evening. We will be in touch with each and every one of you. Kimberly, I know that we're going to talk probably within the next day. So I look forward to collaborating with each of you. Thank you for being a part of our conversation this evening, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Please be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.